So welcome to Rest of Designs, guys, and welcome to a follow-on from the last video where I just ended it right there at the work. So welcome to Rest of Designs, guys, and welcome to the continuation of the last video, which is Project Freebie and doing this ABF conversion from 1.3 to ABF. As you saw in the last video, I showed you guys the engine bay and the kind of the quality it was done, and this original royal blue LA5U, but as you can see, it's got like a little slight red tinge to it, which is one of the variants. So yeah, once this is actually done on the bodywork, that color, or that variant, should I say, it's gonna look really, really nice in the sun. But the engine bay, as you guys can see, is looking a lot better. And also, as you guys can see, I've already done quite a lot. Now, this is how I project manage a build. It's not for everyone. A lot of people will actually drop the engine straight in and then work around the engine. I actually tend to do it the other way around. I like to actually get all the bits done that the engine will get in the way of actually doing. It makes my life a lot easier and a lot quicker. So this is how I do it. As you can see, I've already put, let's start at the top here. I sprayed and detailed the wiper mech and also put the arms on, put the cover on. I've also put the wings on because the wings weren't on. So I put those on and lined them all up. Just need to do the wheel arch liners now. Put on the steering column gator in, which is a real pain to get done. Also put the coil on and the light loom as well. As you can see, just gave that a really good clean. So the light loom is done and all plugged into the fuse box. Now the engine harness for the car, which is like the clocks, the starter motor and all the temp stuff, that's pushed in. I just need to plug that in and also show you guys what I've done, because I've done like a few connectors to plug into the ECU side of the loom. The coil is done. And as you guys can see here with the red and black wire, which is the RPM wire, I've actually tapped in here in the coil. I'll show you here on another coil what I've done. So this is another coil. This is a Mark III coil, that's what they like. And then if you you can see this little cover here, you flip it up and you've got these two little connectors. And it's basically, as you bolt it on that way, it's the lower connector, which is that one there. Obviously I've got this one that way around. So it's the top one. So that's the RPM signal done. Also done secured the power steering lines on, cleaned the expansion, the washer bottle, power steering bottles in place, the brackets have been sprayed. Done loads of little bits as well. As you can see, the selectors in. I'm gonna show you guys what I've done on the inside with that. It's quite simple. This is my take on it. It isn't the definitive way of doing it. Now, I tend to do it this way, which is just put a nice thick 6mm steel bar across there, line it up, countersunk these two bolts on there. They're M8s, tighten them up, and that's it. I don't put anything at the front, because if you actually use the front ones, it kind of sits too high. This is the perfect height. And as you can see, just with these two bolts, with this heavy bar in it, 6mm, look, pressing down on it and it just doesn't move. It's just absolutely solid. So yeah, that literally is the way forward. The only thing you need to do is actually trim slightly on this side there, so it clears this bar off the linkage, and that's it really. And I'm going to show you guys what it looks like underneath and what I've done. And the reason why I've done this is because if I need to revert back to the original box, I can, because I might need to one day, if I have an issue, turn the car back to 1.3, so just for a little test. So what I've done is trimmed off the front of this bracket and actually peeled it back, and now I've actually put it back on again. So the very worst scenario, if I need to put this back to 1.3, I can remove this and I can just kind of spot weld this into place and bolt the box back on without any issues. Now, surprisingly, this 1.3 as well as a friend's 1.3. Came with no heat shield at all on here. Obviously these 1.3s aren't making any heat. So I went through my stock of stuff on the shelf. So yep, I had this actually on the shelf. I've taken this off a car that I broke, and as you can see here in Portugal, look at the condition of this. It's actually in really good condition. No corrosion or anything, because these seem to corrode around here with all the salt and stuff. If you look at all the cars from the UK and Germany and Belgium and Holland, corrode quite badly, and this one's in really good condition. All right, let's move into the inside now, and I can show you what I've done with some of the loom. So this is the mess of the fuse box, and these are the white plugs, which are kind of the engine side of the harness. So basically these now will plug into the ECU loom, because the ECU is going to sit there underneath the central console. And so the wire, basically the only plug that's going to go outside is going to be the round one that goes onto the actual engine harness, and that is going to be plugging into the car with these 6 wires, and that's all you need. And then I need to put the engine relay, I need to put the ECU relay into here. But yeah, so let me just plug these in quickly, these white plugs, get that sorted. That's an auxiliary, don't need that. I plug those wires in, the 3 white plugs that go to the engine harness, and this is all I'm left with now, is these 2 plugs that I put here with 6 wires, which are the ones that go, like I said, into the ECU. Makes my life a lot easier. Okay, so that's that almost done. Like I said, just need to put the ECU relay in there. The fuel pump relay's in already. What's next to do here on the fuse box? There's a purple and black wire here, which I've earthed out here, because on the 1.3 loom, I've got this red plug here, which I think is a temperature thingy for kind of the heater circuit. And it's got that same wire here, which is the purple and black wire. So I'm going to utilize this plug for the actual water pump that goes on the engine. And obviously the black and yellow wire is ignition 12. So every time the ignition is on, I'll have 12 going to the coolant pipe, to the auxiliary water pump. So now the next thing to do is going to be put on the brake servo with the master cylinder, and also the clutch master cylinder in there as well, and actually do all the brake lines and get all the brakes bled. So then at that point, I have a brake pedal. So that's the clutch master on. Now I'm going to deal with this bottle here, which is the original Mark II one, which, because I need a takeoff for the actual to feed the clutch master. And what I've got here, actually cleaned up, and I found in the scrapyard a B3. So it's literally like an OEM plus, it's literally exactly the same. And it's got a little takeoff for the clutch feed. Now I just put a pipe there. Always cut a little bit longer to see if I need to then trim it off. Yeah, maybe I'll trim it a little bit more. So let me just put this little clamp on here so that when I put the fluid in, it doesn't leak out, and all of the fresh paint work out of the clutch master cylinder. That'd be a disaster. All right, so I've taken the engine bay as far as I can go to make my life easy, getting all these little bits and pieces and all the looms and all the rest of it. The only thing that's not in is actually the engine loom to the ECU, but I'll put that in because I still need to kind of tape it up and give it its shape, because I don't know which way I'm going to run it yet. If it's going to go across the gearbox or along the engine and then along the bulkhead, because the hole's at the bottom there, so it might be easier if I do it that way around. So let's get this off the stands and get the rest of the bits put on this, the clutch and flywheel. And more importantly also, we're going to go into this gearbox, because this gearbox is a 6-speed gearbox, and there's going to be a very small club of people that have been driving or have driven these old 16 valve engines with a 6-speed gearbox. There can't be many of us out there. I'm going to be joining the club. Recently, I mean, I've had this gearbox for years, and it's actually been on a 20 valve Mark IV Golf, but obviously because it's got the same bell housing, and you know, I'll go into it what actually this gearbox is. But yeah, it's a 6-speed gearbox. It would work perfectly for what I'm going to be using here. The gears are all more shorter, more aggressive, from 1 to 5, and then number 6, the 6th gear, is slightly, only ever so slightly taller than the original ABF 5th gear. So yeah, it's going to be really quite nice. I'm going to go into it. I'm going to show you guys what this is. Okay, so let's start off with the basics. As you can see, it looks like an O2A, an O2J 5-speed gearbox that comes in your, I don't know, Mark 2 G60, Mark 3 Golf 16 valves and Passats, diesels and petrols. It's very similar to that. The only difference is we have this extra casing here at the end, which actually holds 6th gear. So this is a 5-speed gearbox plus 1 if you kind of look at it that way. So it's actually a conversion that VW did themselves to convert the smaller box to a 6-speed box. Now, some of you are going to ask, what is the code for this and where does this come from, this gearbox? Okay, this gearbox is coded O2S, and this gearbox comes on 2004 upwards Golf Mark 5 and also the Audi 8P A3. And I think it comes also in the Touran and a few other little models, stuff like that. It's basically, this comes on the 2-litre 16 valve FSI non-turbo cars. It also comes on the 1.9 TDI 105 horsepower sport cars, because the non-sports have a 5-speed and the sport ones have a 6-speed gearbox. And that's about it really. That's the engines that I think this comes with. It might actually come on also the 1.4s, the TSFIs, I think, like on the Touran, like the 180s, I think they have this gearbox as well. So it comes in a few variants. Now, this is actually a diesel gear set that's in here, or a mix and match of gears, because funny enough, because the standard wheel size and tyre size, should I say, the standard tyre size on the Mark 5s are so big, when you put these down to set 15s, still actually reduces the gears because the tyre size is so big on the Mark 5s. So if you've got, like, for this application, like I said, the first 5 gears are a lot shorter than the original gearbox, which is a gearbox code CDA. And as you can see, it uses all the original starter motor. This is actually a starter motor for TDI, so it's going to have slightly more torque. I'm also using here a Golf Mark 3 front engine bracket, because I'm going to be using, obviously, the Passat B4 front cross member with mount, so it's that superior as well. All the clutch Moss cylinders are all the same, so that's perfect as well. It also comes with 100mm flanges, which is going to fit anything from a Mark 1 to a Mark 4 Golf, which is also pretty cool. This is obviously also off a Passat as well, this rear bracket. That speed sensor, actually take that off because I'm going to be running the cable, because the Mark 2 Golf. What else can I say? And also, this gearbox also has a quaife diff in it. So as well as it being more aggressive and potentially a higher top end, but it's also got an LSD in it, you know, a limited slip differential quaife one. So it's going to be really quite nice. This car's going to be quite aggressive. Like I said, there can't be many of us that are actually driving these old 16 valve engines, be it 1.8 or even 2-litre with a 6-speed gearbox. We must be, or I must be, in a really small club. I can't imagine there being maybe more than 10 of us, maybe. I don't know. It could be maybe a few more. So this is how I actually do it. I've actually got the jack actually on the crane, so I can move the jack and the crane together to get the right angle on the engine to tilt it up. So now I'm able to actually put these bolts in at the back. So now I've just got to put the cross member on, which is a bit tricky. So now what I'm going to do is I have to put an axle stand underneath the engine, remove the crane, well, remove the jack, remove the crane, and then I'm able to actually put that front cross member on. So I've also made sure I'm not going to damage my very expensive and very nice Schrick baffled and cooled sump. So this is the cross member I'm using. I've covered this in a few videos and the benefits of this, especially if you're running a 20 valve on a UK car and clearing the brake master cylinder. This actually helps quite a lot. So this is a B4, Passat B4, any Passat B4 front cross member. I think the VR6 one is actually different, so it's not any B4, all apart from the VR. But yeah, all the petrols and diesels Passat B4 have this cross member, which is basically a Mark II cross member. But instead of having the Mark II mount, it's got this far superior Golf Mark III mount. So obviously when you use this, that's why I've combined it with this from the Mark III, because obviously you have to match. So to make my life a little bit easier, I bolted it on loosely, so I got some adjustment. Okay, I totally forgot. I do forget things as well sometimes. I actually need to fit this on first, actually, before I can actually bolt that cross member on. Okay, so let's try this again. And now that's it, moment of truth. So the engine's actually sitting there by itself now. So now next thing to do is going to be doing the loom and actually running it the way I want to run it, the neatest way, sorting out the downpipe, doing the gear linkage, connected to the gearbox, coolant hoses, and get it started.